And here we go, Florus, 11th of October 2022. Book 2, Chapter 16. Alterum bellum. We start off with another war in the accusative. Concedivit, it's in the perfect, it was incited or motivated by. Agorum, this is the genitive plural. Divisio, here's our nominative. So, the division of lands or fields excited another war. Quod, because Caesar. After this comma, we're going Caesar's now the nominative. Veteranus patris pretium milite persolvabat. So this verb persolvabat means having paid out. We have in English insolvent and solvent. Solvent means you can pay things. So he had paid out a pretium, which is a reward or the wages of their military service, the militatia, to the veterans of his father. This would be his adopted father. Semper means always. Alias, another adverb. It means at other times or previously. Antoni persumum ingenium fulvia. Okay, fulvia would be the nominative. So, back to the ingenium. This is the inborn nature or character. Persumum is the worst, and Antoni is of him. So, always at other times, the character was the worst, or Antony had the worst kind of character. Fulvia, tum, which means then, gladia cincta virilis audacia uxor adjutabat. This is imperfect. So Fulvia is the uxor. In the nominative, she's the wife of Antony, or Antonius. She then, cincta, this is putting a belt on basically, and it's the female version because Fulvia is a female. She is girt with a gladius, which is a sword, virilis, of her husband. A vir is a husband or a man. And she was agitating. She was agitating her worst characteristic husband. Audacia. This is in boldness, basically. So take a good look at this. That audacia is not in the lobe, and this in arma erat's not either. So I'm just going to modify this so it's with the lobe. Okay, so this is the lobe version. There's also a third type which has revocaverated in there. Anyway, ergo, therefore, depulsus agris colonists. Colonists have been depulsed, they've been driven out. So the colonists have been driven out from their fields, the agris. In this gerund here, incitendo, by an incitement, iterum again. Quierat, they're incited to take up arms. So remember, Caesar is distributing all the lands as reward to his the veterans of his father. And Antonius, with a terrible nature, his wife's been agitating him to fight anyway. And we have the colonists, they're now taking up their arms because they've been driven from the fields. Hic, this is a male nominative demonstrative pronoun. Viro, but he, now non-provatus, so usually you'd have a modo or something, not only by the private citizens, it's plural in the ablative, but totius senat suffragis. Suffragis is the votes, so not only by the private citizens, but by the votes of totius senatus, the whole senate. Judicatum hostem, he was judged to be an enemy. This would be Antonius. Caesar aggressors, this is a past passive, so it goes with Caesar in the nominative, in apposition. So Caesar attacked him. Incha Perusia muros redigit. So redigit means he drove him in there. Inside the muros, which is the walls, Perusia. This would be the place where he went into. Compulitque, and he compelled ad extrema to the end result of, or to finally, deditionis, which is a surrender. Turpi, this means a very foul way of doing things. And nihil non, that's double negative. So experta comes from expertus, which is one of our daily dictionaries. It means having tested, and fame is feminine. We get feminine English from it. So he tried foul methods, and in the end he starved him out, and he gave himself over into surrender. Cum, there's no ablative, so it'll be when. Solus etiam, so when alone even. Gravis pacai, gravis republica esset Antonius. Okay, Antonius is he alone in the nominative. So while Antonius alone was even gravis, gravis is a third adjective, so it goes is in the nominative for male and females. He was serious pacai to peace, or is that passive infinitive anyway? Oh no, it's so Antonius on his own was a serious matter to peace, but he was a gravis. He was serious to the republic, republica. These are datives. Quasi means as if. Ignis incendio, as if an incendio to a fire, as if adding burning matter to a fire. Lepidus, I guess it was added. So Antonius alone was his serious threat to the peace in the republic, but Lepidus was accessed. He joined him as if adding fire to a fire. Quid, what? Sometimes quid's why, like if you go quid iter, it's why, but this is just what. Contra, against. Contra can be an adverb, or it can be a preposition, if in a preposition that takes the accusative. So what against duos? Consuls, two consuls. Duos exercitus, two armies. Exercitus is a fourth, so it's plural, nominative and accusative ends in us. So you just take that as a preposition, contra. Okay, necesse, fluid. You see necessit est and stuff pretty common. It means it was necessary. This is in the past, so it was necessary, venire, to come into. We see, if you look at through the downloads, I give that necessity will take the infinitive in this construction. So it's necessary to come into a cruentissimi, which is a most cruel. It's you have positives, and then you have comparatives, and then you have superlatives, and that's the superlative form. In, with an I here, Florus society. So it was necessary to come into this most cruel society, this most cruel alliance of a treaty. Florus is a treaty. In comparison to, we have Fodi, I know we had Turpi there, okay. So we have a diversa omnium vota ut ingenia. So there was a diversity in all of them, or how you want to put them. They were all different in vota, which is in their will or their prayers or their vows even, as in their ingenia. We saw ingenium up here was the inborn nature. So they had different wills and different natures, and there's three of them. There was Caesar, Antonius, and Lepidus. Lepidum in the accusative for Lepidus. Cupido is the nominative in a desire divitarum. Dive is a riches, so there was a desire of riches, Lepidus accusative. Quarum, of which spes, his hope, ex perturbations, from this confusion or perturbations, this is an English word for it, of which his hope from all this confusion, re publica, again, that's a genitive, that's the different declensions, but he had a desire for riches from which he had hope for these riches, so he had a spes and a cupido from this confusion in the Republic. And Antonium, we see in contrast in the accusative, in ultiones. We have three different versions. I think we have ultionis in one and ultionem in another text. He wanted revenge, de his qui, on those who, his is plural, de takes the ablative plural here, those who had judged, say, himself, so they had judged him, Antonius, he's this say here in the accusative and say there. So those who had judged him to be an enemy, he wanted his ultionem, he wanted his revenge on them. Caesarem, that's Caesar, so he's the third party. Yeah, so Caesar invultus pater, this is the nominative, so his father, this is his adopted father, Julius Caesar, who was murdered, he's invultus. These go together in that position. So Caesar in the accusative, his unavenged father, and manibus eus, and this is, and with the shades of his, they call shades like ghosts, but usually it would be singular for one person. Graves, Cassius, and Brutus agitaban. So Cassius and Brutus, they're the nominatives as well. They've been agitating or stirring up. Another grave is used. Florus uses grave here as a grave risk. So he can break Lepidus down, desirous of riches. He had a hope that from the confusion that he would get these riches. Antony, he wanted revenge on those who had judged him to be an enemy. Caesar was mentioned here because his father was unavenged, and Cassius and Brutus were stirring up trouble to this Menabus, which is the spirit of his father. I might make that the daily dictionary word. Okay, so here's our daily dictionary. Manes. It's only in the plural, that's why we've got a corpse here, but it looks plural. So the ablative is Menabus. Literally, the good ones. Substantive use for the masculine plural of manus, good. Spirits of dead ancestors, the shades. Yeah, I knew they were called shades. Corpse, ashes, remains, netherworld, even. So here it's Julius Caesar's corpse we'll be talking about. In hoc. So in this, velut, as if, a fidus pax. Fidus again is treaty. It's actually is a neuter. There was a pax inter tres dukes amongst these three leaders, or generals even. There was composed, componenter, a foedus, a treaty. And so this treaty of the peace was about these things that we mentioned. There was revenge and there was desires for money, so they all settled it. Apud confluentes inter Perusia and Bonanum jungent manus and exercis consalabant. So here the army is greeting each other. Like, this could be plural, but we've only got bat here, not band. And this is a place that should be a capital C. So at this place, which is between Perusia and Bonius, they jungeted hands. They joined their hands. This would be the three of these leaders, settling their differences, making a treaty, a foedus, making a peace, a pax deal, and the armies greeted each other. Nullo bono more. This is the ablative absolute. So with a no good mores or custom, triumvirate, here we go, the triumvirate's the topic, invaded, was entered into. So a triumvirate was entered into, which had not a very good custom. You see, there had been a previous triumvirate, Julius Caesar, Pompeius, and Crassus. Now you've got another one. Oppressus qui, oppressa arma republica. So this would be another ablative absolute bit probably. So the republic was being oppressed or crushed, or however you want to translate, by arms. Armus is ablative here. So with the republic being crushed again by arms, Reddit returned Salano proscriptius. This was it's not in genitive, but it still is the prescription of Sulla returned. This is where they put people on a list and they killed them. Cuis, of whose atrocitas, these are atrocities, probably singular or plural, however you want to take it. Nihil in se minus habet, quam numerum centum and quadraginta senatorum. Senatorum's a genitive here. So there was nothing less. Nihil minus is nothing less. The atrocities were nothing less in this one than in the number of 140 senators were put on this prescription list to be killed, or they were killed. Exodus Fodi. So this is Exodus here is probably meaning death. So there's foul death basically, or we'll just go on here. Truces, this is people being cut down. Miserabales, this is wretchedness or even pittiness. Toto terrorum orbe fugientium. So this is of those fleeing. This is the present participle in the genitive. So for those fleeing, there was terrible deaths and cut down, and this was in the toto orbo terrarum, in the whole of the world, or the orb of the world as they call it, but this basically means the whole world. Quis pro indignitate re ingemiscat. That re's not there in the Loeb version, so you can ignore that. If you want to keep it there, it just means a matter. So I don't think this is a who. So what would be this ingemisco, which is groaning and moaning? Pro means for this, the indignity or the shockingness of it, of the prescriptions. When Antonius Lucius Caesar avunculum sum, his uncle Lucius Caesar was put on the list, and Lepidus, the other nominative here, he had proscripturented, he had proscribed Lucius Paulum fratrum sum. So this is, he's even put his brother on the list. And this was causing mourning and deploring and stuff like that, as we can tell. Nam Rome, 4 at Rome, locative. Capita Caesorum, this is the heads, a capitum would be neuter. Caesorum means of people who were cut down, so the people who were cut down in these prescriptions, their heads. Proponerate in rostris, this means to place on the rostra. Yam, which just means now or already, could even be for a long time now. Usitatum erat, it had been customary. This is what this means. It had been customary now to place on the rostris the heads of people who had been cut down in the prescriptions. Virum, but, sick. Thus or so, starts off strong, but so quoque also, the civites, this is the state or the citizens, lacrimas tenere non potuit. So thus the citizens were not able, non potuit tenere, to hold their lacrimas, their tears, cum when recisum ciceronis caput, when the recised head of Cicero, recised means it's been cut off, so when the cut off head of Caesar, illus suis rostris videritor, when they saw his head cut off on that rostra, suis of his own, this is the rostra he used to speak from, nec aliter, neither differently ad videndum him, to seeing him, quam solabat, as they'd been accustomed, ad audiendum. These are gerunds. So they came not differently than they'd been accustomed to seeing him and to hearing him, and concurritor. After this little clause, this is what the citizens, the civates, were doing. They ran, concurrited. They ran together to see, and they could barely hold in their tears when they saw his head on the rostris. Haec scellera. These crimes, if you know your neuter, you know what haec is. In Antoni lepidi cui tabulus. Tabulus is the tablets or the writing list where all these prescriptions were put in. So these crimes are on the tables of Antony and Lepidus. It's about done. Caesar, nominative. Percussibus patris contentus fut. So Caesar was contentus fut. He was content with the percussors of his father. Percussors are assassins. So Caesar was content with, in the ablative, the assassins of his father being put on these lists, the tabulus. Ideo, for this reason, nay, lest in... Is this meant to be in volta? I don't think that's how it should go. I think that's supposed to be C here. Is that it? Unless it was unavenged, in volta, that even justa eos cades habrita. This means even it should be considered, habio means to have or to consider, that this cades, eos of him, that this slaughter of Julius Caesar would etiam even seem justa, just. So that's why he didn't want it to go in volta unavenged.